Well, gentlemen, welcome to Honor Cafe Hall of Heroes. Today
Thank
I
you.
have with me, go ahead,
Sergeant Matthew Zemus.
Vice Corporal Tristan Chen.
and I was told by Will, who we've interviewed before, that you guys needed to come on together because you're battle buddies now, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, and so I guess I'll start with each of us, each of you guys tell us where you came from, where your home is.
My home is in Chicago, Illinois, sir. And I joined the Marines in 2005 and was retired in 2014. I was in Fallujah and Sangin. I was in 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines for 7 years, Special Operations Training Group, 2-1, and Wounded Warrior Battalion. And I love my country.
Awesome.
I was born and raised in Colorado Springs, born on the Air Force Academy. I joined the Marine Corps in 2009. I also got lucky enough to be in 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines, and I deployed to Sangin with this guy.
So you guys deployed together.
Yes, we were different companies, but I was moved from one company because they couldn't handle me and moved to Kilo Company where it was a little harder. And I was a squad leader there, weapons platoon sergeant. And then I was on the medical board actually, and I didn't deploy with the initial push, the guys to Sangin. But once I heard about the first couple KIA and the first dozen amputees, I went to a lieutenant commander and said, sign here so I could leave. And I left. I wasn't even supposed to be there, and I couldn't sit back in the United States and hear about what was going on. So I got out there as soon as possible.
Yeah, I get that from a lot of Marines that I was with, and soldiers as well. But you know, the Marines are always chomping at the bit to fight, and it's the worst thing. It's like training a football team to be, to play, and then you get benched.
Yes, sir.
And a lot of people don't understand that. Now, the Air Force Academy, you were at the Air Force Academy, and you decided to become a Marine. Why not? Around those Air Force guys, you saw what was going on.
If I was going to join, I was going to join the best.
Yeah.
And I joined because I wanted to fight. So why not go to the Marine Corps?
So you guys were both trained to be infantry.
We were 0311 riflemen, yes, sir.
0311 riflemen. And so did you guys meet when you're deployed or when training?
I was already in the battalion for 4 years before he got there. And like I said, I was in Lima Company, and I was a little bit wild. So they sent me to Kilo, where there was a Mustang. He's a colonel as well, Garcia. So he was a gunny for 16 years, became an officer. So, I had to be, I was wild. My call sign was Havoc. So I went there and I met, and then he came in, and then he could tell you more than I can, because I really don't remember. All I remember is just being a maniac and training Marines. That's all I cared about. So
the two of the top leaders, General Hummer and
sir.
Mattis, they were chaos and like calamity.
Yes, sir.
So there was their call sign. So you were in good company. But yeah, go ahead. So tell us more about this how this came together.
Yeah, so I was Kilo Company, and I remember when he got to my platoon, he ended up being a squad leader in my platoon. I ended up getting in a little bit of trouble, and he ended up being the driver that took me from Camp Pendleton up to Bridgeport to go see the sergeant major and the colonel. And so that was our first real interaction, was 6 to 8 hours inside of a van. So that was our first interaction.
So did you guys? You said you didn't deploy at the same time. How did deployment happen?
Well, what happened was I got moved to Kilo, and then I went to the Naval Hospital one day for if I had a really bad headache, and I was walking across to go to the Naval Hospital, and I stopped in the middle of the street. I couldn't move, so I'm standing in the middle of the street for 20 minutes. I could not move because I have congenital fusion from C4 through C6 on my neck, and I never knew what it was. So I'm standing in the middle of the street, and all the cars are passing me, and finally an MP comes, and I can't move. I'm there for like half hour now, 40 minutes. He's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I can't move, dude. I cannot move my neck. I can't move my body. Like, my body was literally, I could not move." So slowly but surely, I came back online, and it took me an hour just to walk maybe 50 meters to get inside to the hospital. And I get in the hospital, and I'm like, something's wrong with my neck. And I know pain, and I'm like, something's wrong with my neck. So they do X-rays, they do all these scans, images, and she's like, "You're not deploying anywhere." I said, "You're out of your mind." I go, "Huh." I go, "We're leaving here in a couple weeks." She's like, "You're getting medically retired." I'm like, "No, I'm not." I was arguing with her. So then a lieutenant commander, he was a force recon guy, was a corpsman. He was a SARC, Special Amphibious Reconnaissance Corpsman. He, was giving me all this medicine and all this stuff, and he was, I was going to get medically separated, and so I got taken out of Kilo Company because I was medically messed up. So they left in October. Oh, I'm sorry, September. Like so initial phases, they were leaving like mid-September. And once I started hearing about like the first 5K and the first dozen double amputees, my gunny who knew Vic Garcia, who's the former the Mustang, the colonel I was just telling you about, they were drill instructors together. So he was the RBE gunny, and I said, "Dude, I'm leaving." I go, "I need the paperwork now." He's like, "Well, you need to get cleared." So I pulled a move, and I regret to this day. I wish I could talk to Lieutenant Commander, the force guy. So I basically got the paperwork. I flew down. I had a Shelby GT500. I did like 150 miles an hour from Camp Pendleton down to San Diego. Got on base. I went to this doctor. I didn't even know who he was. All I knew, he's outranked the other guy. I said, "You need to sign your." I walked in this officer's room. He had no idea who I was. I said, "You need to sign your name right here." And he was like, because, doctors, he just signed his name. I said, "I need to leave, sir." I told him, I said, "This is what's going on." And I went back to Pendleton, and I was on a bird 2 days later going to Afghanistan.
So how did your neck hold up when you got deployed?
Horrible. It's still, I'm paying the price to this day, but I don't care because I needed to be with my guys, and that's all I cared about. So.
Yeah, I mean, I get that. We'll talk offline after this because I've seen so many amputees that, they just want, it's almost like they want their prosthesis in country because they want to get back in the fight.
Yeah.
It's incredible, the drive.
Yes, sir.
So you got there first. Did you go directly to Sangin? What was in what year was that?
We left September of 2010, but we got there October 2010. We flew into Kyrgyzstan and then straight to Afghanistan. Went to Leatherneck and then deployed straight to Sangin. Yeah.
How large was your group that went into Sangin?
It was about 800 infantry, 700 infantry.
Well, that's a lot. That's not a big place.
Proper. That was company. I mean, that was battalion wide. There was about 700, 800 of us, and then maybe 300 personnel that were non-infantry that supported us. But that was proper. So we had Lima, Kilo, India, and weapons.
I didn't realize they had that many there.
Yeah.
It's kind of surprising.
But the AO was so big. Like Kilo, he was way up north, and then was India, and then Lima, we were south.
See, I'm thinking about the FOB there.
Our FOBs we didn't have FOB. We had patrol bases.
Okay.
Each platoon had their own patrol base. Like we didn't work. Only FOBs were Kilo companies, Lima and India, which was India and HNS. But we operated, the platoons had their own patrol bases. I didn't live in a FOB. I mean, my lieutenant was Lieutenant Kelly, whose father was General Kelly.
Yeah.
And I was there that day. And it was really bad.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, we didn't live in a FOB, sir.
Okay. How often, or when you got there, what amount of time was it before you had your first contact?
Getting off the bird.
Really?
Landing the bird. We're getting shot at by RPGs and
getting
PKMs.
into FOB Inkerman. It was. Yeah.
Inkerman, yep.
Getting off the bird.
Yeah, most people don't realize when you're on those C-130s, most people don't understand how they land, how quickly they go.
Fast.
They go in. It's almost like a dive, like you feel they're going to crash.
Yep.
And then when you're taking off, it's almost like vertical. It's like a jet.
Yep.
And there's popping flares while you take off. You're like, what's that sound? Where and somebody's on a gun, and most people don't realize that that you're getting contact that quick.
We landed on 53s, so they're big ass school bus birds.
Really?
Yes, there's no C-130. We landed on helos. We're getting shot at
Off the helo.
off the helo.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's pretty remarkable.
RPGs were flying by.
Wow. So they didn't. So that tells me they really didn't have the runway secure. Like
We had no runway. We had
No.
nothing.
or the air where you were landing in the LZ.
It was, sir, it was the terrain was so unforgiving. That's why when I was sitting back and I'm like, what is going on? How are all these amputees and KIAs already? So the 611 was the main road that ran north and south. That was the only main road in Afghanistan. One is called the 611.
Yeah.
To the east of it was all pure desert. To the west of it was where the river was, and it was like a jungle. So you literally would cross the street from a jungle. You couldn't see your hand in front of your face. Weed, 10 feet tall, poppy, orchards, corn. We were in firefights and corn, weed. You couldn't see. It was like Vietnam and World War II and Mount terrain. I mean, we would find each patrol I would go on, and Chun can confirm this too, we would find 10 to 20 IEDs every time we went outside the wire. Whether we stepped on them and somebody lost their legs or got killed, or we found them. We had EOD attached to our platoons. That's how bad it was. I mean, it was the most wicked fighting. Like when we ripped with, who do we rip with? What was it, 3-7?
3-7.
And what did they say?
You guys are gonna die.
We're gonna die.
When your EOD was it Marine EOD?
Marine EOD, yes, sir.
Were you working with any other force?
MARSOC was down to our south at Fob Rob, but Recon was there as well. But we everyone was doing their own thing because we were taking so many casualties. We had 25 KIA proper, and we had like 10 more KIA that were attached to us, and we had 186 to 200 amputees. So we were losing. We were just. It was like I said. You couldn't. We did this operation called. We cleared Wishtan. It was Operation Dark Horse 2, and
I know about that. I was there.
That was I was the lead element in that.
You were in Dark Horse. So that brings me to my next question. Was this the patrol area that the Brits were?
Yes.
Yeah.
This
so
Royal
I
Marines.
was there. So
Yes, sir.
Cameron came down on the Freedom Flight, and the Brits were out there, and they weren't up armored at all. And he came down and he said, "No more. We're not going outside the wire," because it was every day
Yep.
that we're setting records for the amount of amputees coming in, and then Dark Horse went out, and the first day 26 guys got killed.
Mm-hmm.
So you were there during that.
Oh yeah.
You were Dark Horse.
Yes, I am Dark Horse. Yep,
Okay.
that's my unit. I was in that unit for 7 years. I was in there Fallujah with him, and
Did you know Chris Kyle?
I don't know him, but I know he was dropping bodies.
Yeah, he was Chris Kyle. He was,
I know. I don't know him, but I know who he
Who he
is.
was, yeah.
But I know what he was doing, and
Yeah.
he was dropping bodies for us. I mean, so
Yeah. Did you and I was going to I'll ask you another question when we get offline. But going back to you were getting contact right off the helos and the LZ. When you got settled in, I mean, was it mainly night missions or was it daytime operations?
No night missions.
No night missions.
We had maybe one or two the entire time we were there. It was just too dangerous. The IED threat was so high. Like you said, we were finding 7 to 10 a day sometimes. We found 2,000 or more than 2,000 IEDs in the 7 months we were there. So the only way that we could find them was, with our eyes, visual indicators on the ground. Maybe the dirt was disturbed a little bit, but other than that, we had minesweepers in the front, but they weren't picking up the battery source.
Mm-hmm.
The battery source was 20 feet away sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
So if you couldn't see some disturbed dirt on the ground, it's a suicide mission. Luckily enough, we didn't have any night missions that we were injured in, but the dangers, it was just too high.
So the caveat of him, I was the one who started night missions in my company, because like I told you, on the 611 side, it was like it wasn't hardball, but it was a real rocky, dense road. So I knew there were no pressure plates on there. However, there were definitely command wires. So I started going out at night. Every night I would take my guys out, and my lieutenant let me. Now, being on the west side, you would have to walk on, how they had their fields and they would have those mounds that they would walk on? Well, we would walk on those. But most of our missions at night, or my patrols at night, were on the east side, and we had very, very good success in taking our enemy out at night because they'd never expected us to be out at night. I would go out with 5 guys. I wouldn't take my squad. I'd take a corpsman and me and my 3 team leaders and go out and just do what we had to do. And that really messed their OODA loop up because they thought we owned the night. And I was so mad when we weren't going out. I was furious. So I would sit back and I was ruthless with what I did. I mean, I wanted to for what they did to my guys. So I went out. We went out at night. Thank God no one got hurt, but we ended up messing up their mindset a lot because they knew we weren't going out. So
Yeah. I asked this question to everybody, and I'll start with you first. When you're training and you're going to get deployed, how much different is it in your mind what you imagine it's going to be than when you get there and you're actually in it?
Yeah, well, you're in training. You're going out in formations. You're fighting up mountains and cliffs and valleys and stuff like that. But we went Ranger file, one behind the other. So this is something that we didn't train for. Maybe once or twice did we ever get in formation and get online and assault the enemy, but we were always Ranger file. It was the safest way to go. And we were in, the valley. We were in cornfields and poppy fields. So it looked more like, Ohio or something than did any kind of ground that we ever trained in.
One of the complaints I always hear from Sangin was we didn't have the high ground, and it was every day somebody was getting picked at or shot at.
Mm-hmm.
And so what was your take on that? Because, we didn't possess the high ground.
We were fighting ghosts. They would hide in the tree lines, and like you said, we didn't have high ground. Maybe we had a building we can get on top of, and that's maybe only 12, 13 feet sometimes. But and that would be my position. I was a machine gunner, so I was an 0311, but I was an honorary 31. I carried a 240, and so we would be on top of rooftops. That was our high ground.
To go off him, fire superiority. That's
Yeah.
all I did. You threw 3, I threw 20 back.
Yeah.
I called for fire, 810s. Whatever bird was on station, HIMARS. I used 60s, 81s. I used whatever as a squad leader. I went to squad leaders course as a lance corporal, platoon sergeant's course as a sergeant. So I knew I had an FO with me. I was JTAC qualified. So they want to be dumb, then I'll be dumb too. And,
That was my next question was you're Air Force FO?
yes, sir.
Okay. How was that guy?
I love having that dude with me because when we needed dust off or medevacs or whatever, I could tell him what I needed to do. He would handle it. But when he wasn't there, I could also get on the hook and drop 500 pounders and whatever it was because I went to school and I qualified for that. So it was it's just one more asset to have because Marine Air Ground Task Force in Marines, we love air support. That's you have to have air. When you have combined arms and you know how to execute, it is a wonderful sight because, like he said, we didn't have no hack. They knew who we were before we left the wire, and they were counting us. They knew who our snipers were, machine gunners, radio operators, lieutenants, squad leaders. So we were always at a disadvantage, and they would be waiting for us, and then they ambush us. But we were so fierce. The unit was, everyone, Kilo, Lima, India, we were just so fierce, and these guys are 18, 19 years old because I joined when I was 22. Seeing these 18-year-old kids doing stuff is just doing what they did was unbelievable.
Yeah, the Marines are fierce, and in fact, Chad Robichaux,
I know.
He was talking to me one day, and he told me about what the Taliban commander said about the Marines. And they were they got to a point where they stopped aggressing Marines.
We had a ceasefire.
Yeah, because they realized that it was a lose-lose for them, that they were going to find them and destroy them.
Yep.
And that's what I loved. I love being with the Marines. I love being
Chad's
on the Marine
a good friend of mine.
Yeah. So I wanted to bring up another Chris name, a guy that I knew. I love this guy. When I went to Mighty Oaks, he was my biggest support. It was Chris Carlisle,
Yeah.
and he was a dark Marine. But so tell me about Chris Carlisle.
Carlisle was probably one of the greatest Marines I've ever known. He was our company gunnery sergeant, and every single casualty in KIA we had, he was hopping in the MRAP, driving outside the wire, to go help him. Every single one of them, whether he had clothes on or not, he would throw a flak jacket and a Kevlar on with no clothes on just to go help these Marines. And he was a fierce leader, like you said, fierce. He was a very fierce leader, but he was our leader.
That's amazing because I knew him, and this is such a great connection, to hear you guys that were under his command because, I heard his stories firsthand in when he went in and what that was like and when you guys went out the wire that first day, and he, the tragic things he told me, and you may have been there when he lost a young guy who was a young Marine who
Benagua.
Yeah, Benagua.
And Pito.
Yeah, and Pito. Yeah, he told me those stories and that he told it in such a way where you felt like you were there.
Mm-hmm.
It was hard, and because I was there, but not in that role. We were either picking up casualties or getting casualties. It's not the same as when you know them,
Mm-hmm.
and you suffer that loss.
Yeah.
But any other stories about him that you want to share? Anything you can think?
He was just a maniac. He carried a hammer, or we carried a sledgehammer around. That was a call sign in Kilo.
Really?
And he would make us do push-ups on the parade deck. We were maniacs. He was just nuts. He was absolutely nuts.
He was also one of the Marines, when you're going on Libo, out for the weekend, he would say, if you guys need anything, call me.
Yes.
He gave everybody his numbers at any time of the night. I'll pick it up. And I found that to be true when I said this guy drove me up to Bridgeport, because I had gotten in trouble. It was 2:00 in the morning, and me and my friend were unsure what we were gonna do. And we said, hey, Carlisle said to call him. And so we picked up the phone and we called him, and he answered. And he sat there for about 15, 20 minutes and just talked to us and told us that he was proud of us because, what happened. It was unfortunate, but we were just going to have to man up and take the consequences. But he still walked us through like that stressful moment. And to know that he was a man of his word.
Yeah.
And he cared about his Marines. He put his Marines first.
Yeah.
When we first met him, he came from 3-7 Kilo, and he was a drill instructor. And so he had his 8-point cover, and it was starched. It was a woodland cover, and it was starched so much it almost looked gray, and it was hard as a rock. And some Marine was doing something on the parade deck that he didn't like, and he took it off and he threw it at him. It hurt him. It hurt him because his cover was so hard. But so we were all kind of terrified that, man, this guy's our company gunny, and he flew to Sangin before us a month prior. And when we were sitting on the parade deck, this is when we knew we were going to have a serious deployment. He's like, look to your left and right. Some of these men won't be coming home with you. Some of you guys are going to die. And at that moment, we knew, like, this is serious. If this is coming from Gunny, like, this is serious.
So he went ahead, and that was the other question was it wasn't secured, but there were people on the ground there.
Oh yeah, we sent our staff NCOs, whoever, logistically or tactically capable. They would go out there and get his left seat, right seat as much as we can. But no one taught us anything. They just said we're gonna go there and die, and that's it. We did what we had to do. So
when you're on a larger base and not on a FOB, the Marines go out on patrol, every day, outside the wire, come back
8 hours, 10 hours.
Yeah, 10 hours, grab some chow, and they're playing video games. Like, you guys didn't have video games on there, because that always blew me away. It's like, why are you playing Call of Duty and you were just out in combat?
We didn't have any of that.
Yeah, you didn't have any of that.
No.
So it was continuing.
We were standing post, filling sandbag. There was no time for video games. We didn't have time for video games. We were training, standing post. There was no time for nothing or sleeping. There was no BS. There was none of that. There
wasn't even much time for phone calls.
Yeah, we couldn't even River City every other day.
Yeah, every other day, we couldn't use the phone for 24 to 48 hours because someone just got injured or killed. So we had a satellite phone we could use for the first few months of the deployment, and we hardly had
access to that.
Yeah.
It was nonstop.
So I'm gonna ask you both questions. You can answer this, and we're gonna kind of get to the end of this. I could talk to you guys for hours, and we will when we get off the
Okay.
video. But I want you to tell me what your best day and your worst day was.
Go ahead, John. My best, I could say my best day was Christmas. Christmas Day, they wouldn't let us patrol, so I'm sitting in this with my boot ass lieutenant and my salty ass staff sergeant and the 3 squad leaders, 3 of us in there. And all of a sudden, my buddy Giles, he's from Chicago too. He's like, "Hey Z, come here." He's like, "Come up to the roof with me." I'm like, "All right." So we go up to the roof. He's got 3 glasses of tequila, like this, So we toasted for Christmas, and we had some female Marines fet team downstairs, and it was nothing, whatever. But it was just like I had a little like this much of tequila, and it was because I didn't drink for we were there already for 5 months or whatever, and I was buzzed out walking around through the patrol base and just acting like a goof, and that was probably the best night we had. And then after that, it was the worst day was my buddy got shot in the face 2 days after that. So yeah, I heard my buddy Wyatt.
Yeah.
So that was the best and the worst for me.
I'd have to say my best day was Christmas as well. The Commandant of the Marine Corps, the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps, and Secretary Gates, the Secretary of Homeland Defense, he came down, or they all came down to Fob Jackson. And we were able to come from Fob Inkerman to Fob Jackson. And they gave us a speech, and they just said we wouldn't want to be anywhere else but here for Christmas. And to think that they were there with us was it was special. We knew that we were doing something that was bigger than ourselves. And they said that every single day, this is their words. Obama's in the Pentagon every single day talking about you guys and checking up on you guys, and that's why we wanted to be here. They even gave a Marine a motorcycle, just for being Marine of the Quarter or something. I forget what the title was, but they gave him a motorcycle, and we all got challenge coins and got to eat dinner with them. Got served by the Sergeant Major of the Marine Corps food. That was my best day. I have 2 worst days. I guess one of them was probably getting on the helicopter out of there. I just remember that was the second time I ever shed a tear in combat, and it was knowing that I would never see this place again. We're flying away, and everything that we just did and all the brothers we lost are still on the battlefield. And I'd probably never visit this place ever again. That was hard for me.
Yeah. It's hard to leave. I mean, people think because you see the war movies, you see Vietnam, and you can't wait to rotate out. But the truth is, you look forward to that day. You kind of get squirrely getting close to it. And I know that you probably had that feeling like you don't want to think about
no
it.
Calendars.
No calendars.
No calendars.
No calendars.
Yep.
None. Because,
complacency.
Yeah, it does. And then you kind of get gun shy too, because if you're aggressive like Pat proved, you're liable to survive. But if you try to save your life, you're going to lose it. And that's actually scriptural in a sense. If you love your life, you'll lose it. But if you say you hate your life, don't worry about it. You'll save it. And I know that leaving, it's hard. You don't want to leave them behind. And you just feel like you could or you want to do more.
Yeah, it's same thing how Chun said as we flew away on the 53. I looked down and I can remember where everyone was killed of our guys are injured. I'm looking down like, now what? What is? We just went through some real bad stuff, and now here we take off, and so.
Well, 2 things I always take away, I'm going to give this to you guys because we all struggle with this is, why? What's the point? Well, the point is when you prove that you're that force, there's always fear, because Saddam and his soldiers, when we came in the second time, they were terrified. And basically they capitulated because they knew they were horrified of us coming in again. And that's the same way it is now. Regardless of what goes on politically, the thought of you guys coming back is the most horrific thought a Taliban can think about. And the little bit of freedom that you gave the people and showed the people there is a seed that was planted.
Yes, sir.
So it wasn't for nothing. It's just hard still because we had it won. And just like Vietnam,
attrition.
And that's hard. But to finish this up, It's hard when you see a guy and they're injured and you find out later didn't make it, or they did, but it's going to be rough. Did you connect with anybody that got injured with amputation?
Yes, sir. I did, but a lot of it was so bad. They got in drugs, suicides. I mean, like divorce rate was 85%. I mean, it was horrible. The commandant didn't let no one go PCS for months because of what happened. So after the aftermath of what happened was even worse than the deployment, because I've had friends get killed by cops, suicide by cops, kill themselves, overdose. Um, it's drugs now, so it's trying. And I was in my own addiction. I had to push everything down for 6-7 years. I was doing drugs just to forget about everything, and I couldn't connect with no one because I felt so bad. And now most of them are gone or dead from drugs or suicide.
So you guys are here to get your battle buddies now, and obviously you're doing better. You've turned that corner. So what significant thing happened in your life that made the difference that you're here now? You're talking about it, and you're able to deal with this, process it.
On camera or off camera?
Say what you can on camera.
I just knew that I had to get away from the people, places, and things that I was currently involved in. And just recently, and I say this all the time because it sticks with me the most, I realized that no matter where you go, the one thing you take with you is yourself. So until you start working on what's going on internally, everything that's going on externally doesn't matter. So for the last 6 months, I've been clean and sober for the first time, and I don't even know how long. And it's been wonderful to start feeling the pain again and be able to move past it. I believe in synchronicities. I believe that when things happen, somehow God has a hand in it, and it's just really amazing to see those instances happen. I think me and him had one yesterday. We got to sit in a room with 5 guys, and it was just something that you didn't expect, and we all got to share our story and feel some pain together, and I thought that was beautiful.
We're at Hearts Museum, and Will Moore set this interview up, and there's some amazing ministries up here, and when I see and hear your story, and I talk to Amos about all the things that are going up here, it really it makes me proud to be a part of this community. It really does.
It's amazing because there's nothing like this where I come from.
Yeah.
Me neither.
Yeah. So what was the turning point, that God had shifted for you?
For me to fix my life was once you hit bottom. I mean, living in Chicago, I was spending thousands a month on drugs, and I'm like, what am I doing? And I looked at the Marine Corps flag and I said, God, if you give me a place to go to, I will never use drugs again. And I was like, I'm lying to myself. And then I said it again, and my dad honked a horn. I grabbed my retirement certificate, and I went to the Naval Base, Great Lakes, got my retired ID, and I got on a bird with $1 in my pocket and my ID, and and flew down to Houston. I called Chad, and he got me a spot, and then that didn't work out. I got dropped off, so I called Chad. He hooks me up with a place in Madisonville. Didn't work out. The guy was a Vietnam veteran, Purple Heart dude. I flip out. I said, I don't want to be here. He drops me off. This is insane. So now I have no money, no credit card, no debit card, just my ID. I get dropped off at the Roadway Inn, which is literally a mile right here. And I remembered my password for Facebook, which I never ever remember. And I post on Facebook, I'm stranded in Huntsville. Does anyone, so I figure my dad got me one hotel room for the night. So I'm like, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I'm sitting there praying. I'm like, I'm from Chicago. I have nothing down here. I don't have no money. I look back at my Facebook, and this guy calls me, and they come get me. Like, he was a mile and a half down the road. I mean, I got dropped off at the Roadway Inn from Madisonville. I post on Facebook. My buddy McCulloch's father, he was a Force dude, got on the hook with Amos and called him, and he called me, and they picked me up and they saved me.
And you guys got reconnected.
We got reconnected, and he was here.
It's one of those things that God has His hand in, and you get to see it.
I haven't seen him since 2011,
Mm-hmm.
12ish.
It was 2013 or 14.
13, 14, yeah. Well, yeah.
Well, it doesn't get any better than that. So we're gonna stop here, and I just wanna sincerely thank you guys for telling your story, for coming on this, and the Honor Cafe Hall of Heroes, and
Yes, sir.
and we really appreciate what you did. And I'm not gonna say that term, thank you for your service, because it drives me nuts. I know why we serve. You don't have to thank us, but I want to thank you for all that you did, and then all that you're doing now.
Yes, sir.
continuing to do, okay?
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you as well.
Thank you too, sir.